Welcome to the Archispeak podcast. I'm Evan Troxel. Each episode, Neil Pan, Cormac Phelan, and I have a casual conversation about all things architecture, and we invite you to listen in as we talk about everything in the profession, both the good and the bad. Maybe you're considering a career in architecture, you're still in school, or you've been around the blocks of Corbusier's City of Tomorrow more times than you'd like to admit. Join us in the studio as we stand around the water cooler and talk about why we love our chosen profession. It's time for some Archispeak.
Welcome to episode 70 of the Archispeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
And this episode of Archispeak is sponsored by ArCat. Visit them at arcat.com. That's ARCAT.com. We're also sponsored by, and we'd like to welcome Hager Companies to our sponsors. And you can find them at HagerCo, that's HAGERCO.com. We'll talk more about each of them later in the show, but first we have a friend of the show to announce.
That is right. We have a new returning friend of the show, Jenny Rotes, who donated $5, and Jenny was inspired by Cormac's story, or maybe she just did this on her own and then attributed it to Cormac, but she got a new job and she seems like she's really happy with it. So we're happy for her. We've known Jenny for a long time on Twitter, and she's a great person, so look her up. We'll put her name in the show notes with a link to her Twitter. And thank you, Jenny, for being a returning friend of the show. We really appreciate it. And if you would like to become a friend of the show and get your name mentioned on the Archispeak podcast, you can do that at archispeakpodcast.com/donate. And any donation over $5 gets your name read on the show. And we appreciate every dollar that's donated. It really does help us with running the show and doing all the stuff that it takes to make it happen. So thanks again, Jenny. And we would love to see some more new friends of the show. So everybody go to archispeakpodcast.com/donate and do that. That would be awesome. All right, so today we have Alice Kimm from John Friedman, Alice Kimm Architects on the podcast to talk about the Monterey Design Conference, which is coming up in October from the 16th through the 18th, 2015 in Monterey, California. And what we wanted to do, we're going to be going to that show. I guess it really isn't a show, it's a conference, and it's really a design conference. The focus is completely on design the entire weekend long, and so I think we're going to talk about Alice and her role in the conference, and then what we're kind of expecting to get out of it, and all kinds of things. We'll see where this goes. So, Alice, thank you very much for joining Archispeak.
Thanks for having me.
So go ahead and tell us kind of a little bit about you so that people kind of get a little bit of an introduction, and then what your role is in the Monterey Design Conference this time around.
Okay, well, I am a practicing architect in LA, and I also teach at USC. For 4 years, I was the director of the undergrad programs there. And while there, of course, we always bring in a lot of practitioners to teach topic studios and things like that. So it's been a really fun and interesting time there. So my partner John Friedman and I were also emerging. I'm still not sure what they call it, emerging talent or emerging voices at the Monterey Design Conference back in 2003, and my memory of the conference from then even is just that it's kind of a special event. It is all about design, as you said, nothing else. I mean, just design in the broadest definition as it relates to architecture and beyond. And it's just in this very, very beautiful setting. And while there is a sort of maybe a little bit of emphasis on California design and architecture, it really is sort of an international platform. So it's a really special event. We have a committee made up of architects, designers, marketing people, and just various people who are related to the industry. And together we have come up with a phenomenal list of speakers for the conference. And it's really just going to be 3 days of great dialogue, great conversations about design, all in this amazing setting. And I think that's what MDC is really about. Definitely.
So the conference itself is at the Asilomar Conference Center in Monterey, which is right on the water, basically. And when you say it's a really special place, I totally agree with you. It's one of those spots where you kind of feel like you can leave your normal day job behind, and you don't have to think about any of the normal day-to-day stuff that you do every day. And you really do get to disconnect there. And I think that's one of the key ingredients to making it a successful conference. That's really been a successful part of that.
Yes. I think that's really, really true. It really is kind of an escape. And at the same time that it's an escape, it's also a total immersion into the thing that you love doing. And so I think in that sense, it really is unusual and a great opportunity for people to go and get very inspired and to see new things or start thinking about things that are familiar to them in different ways. And it's really also multi-generational, I think. So I think one of the nicest things about MDC is that you really run into huge numbers of people from all age groups. There will be students there. There will be more senior practitioners. It's just a whole range of people and talent and dialogue. So it is everything you say, I think, and more.
Yeah, so there's kind of two different groups, or maybe three, of, I guess, categories of speakers, it seems like. There's the international, and then there's kind of the U.S., the established, I guess, and then there's the emerging. Is that what you would say, too?
I guess I would categorize them more as, we call them headliners. Mm-hmm. And the headliners are both international as well as national. It's just established, phenomenal designers who have really interesting and successful practices, whether they're from the U.S. or whether they're from abroad. Then we have a group of 4 emerging talents from California, 2 from Southern California area and 2 from Northern California. And then we have other really interesting speakers who fall into sort of a different category, partly education, but also just partly contemporary topics, I would say. So, it comes under the moniker that doesn't sound as glamorous of continuing education sessions, but that's not really what it is. So, for instance, this year we're going to have a phenomenal panel on water, given the situation with the drought in California. And that panel will be led by Arid Lands Institute's founders, Hadley and Peter Arnold, who you may or may not know just won the Latrobe Prize, which is the largest, of course, research grant for architects. So that was a big deal. They're from California. They teach at Woodbury. So we're really, really happy to be having them. So that, I think there are 3 categories, but I guess that's how I would divide them up.
Yeah. So at the last MDC, we had Odile Deck was there, Kengo Kuma. Is that right?
Right.
And we had, from California, we had Anne Fougeron. I'm trying to think of all the people who were there. But just to kind of give people an idea of, can you give a rundown of who all's going to be there this year?
Yeah, so we will have, in no particular order, Frank Barkow and Regina Leibinger of Barkow Leibinger. They're based in Berlin. Fantastic practice that sort of deals with really material innovation, but they do a lot of amazing projects across many different building types and scales. Frank is actually American. He was educated at Harvard, and I think he did his undergrad at the University of Minnesota, but he transplanted to Germany, and he's been there ever since in partnership with Regina. Another architect who will be coming in from Japan is Junya Ishigami, probably not as well known to our local communities here, but will be soon enough. Mm-hmm. He does really amazing kind of ephemeral, very beautiful work. No other way to describe it, just very, very special. And then Carme Pinos, who I think everybody probably knows from Spain, who's been doing a lot of large-scale work recently. And Meryl Elam, who is partners with Max Scoggin out of Atlanta, will be joining us. She is a great speaker, great architect, very charismatic person. So she'll be joining us from the east, from Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember everybody who's coming. We have Bernard Schumi coming, of course, who hails from both Paris and New York, of course, where he was running the programs at Columbia for a long time. That will be very, very interesting. And we have Clive Wilkinson, who's a local favorite, but also obviously international reputation, from Los Angeles, who has done a lot of great work, has sort of reinvented the office environment in many different ways. Rand Elliott will be joining us from the Midwest, and he does really beautiful work at all scales. Also, emphasis on tectonics and great detailing. So, really nice, well-rounded group of people.
Yeah, so let's talk about kind of a day in the life at MDC, because it's kind of Friday afternoon through the evening, and then it's all day Saturday, and then it's kind of Sunday half a day, and then everybody kind of shoes away from the conference center. But Saturday is obviously the kind of the big potatoes of the whole thing, right? So you wake up and you're basically immersed in the whole day. You're one right after another of talks and food and maybe a walk to the beach, but you're talking with 600 other architects that are all gathered in the same place at the same time, talking about design. Right. I thought it might be interesting just to give people kind of an idea of what to expect over the weekend. But I think one of the goals of us just talking to you is to get people interested in going, and to think, because to me, we just got back from the AIA National Convention, which I say just got back, but that was a few months ago. It feels like it just happened. But and we were there, and we did a couple of shows from there as well. And to me, this seems kind of completely opposite of that, right? There's no booths. There's no, they're not trying to sell you stuff the whole time.
No booze?
Yeah, no, I didn't say that. And then there's the talks are not fully scripted like they seem to be at the AI convention. There's no voting sessions going on. It just seems like, it really does seem like a retreat instead of like this thing where you go to kind of gather up a bunch of pamphlets and booth swag, and then maybe do some AIA stuff on the side. This is something entirely different. So I thought it would be interesting for our listeners just to kind of find out what it's like to actually go there and what to expect throughout the day. And I've been a couple times, so I can chime in too. I think that maybe we can go through that.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I think it is very, it just feels very informal, as you're, I think, alluding to, even though there is a structure. Everything is everything is behind the scenes timed. So, the four emerging speakers, for instance, only have 15 minutes to really say what they want to say and show us what they're up to. But, in the end, I think it's enough, because there's a lot more conversation that can take place between structured talks and in the dining hall where everybody gathers for meals, and before the movies that are shown and you're having popcorn or whatever it is you're doing. There's going to be a jam session on Saturday night with anybody who brings an instrument and wants to join in can join in. So, I think it's the informality that kind of leads to great dialogue and discussions. I don't know, some of the organizers like to liken it to sort of fireside chat type things where you just kind of hang out and have a glass of wine and talk to people you want to talk to and learn stuff that you want to learn about. So I think that that is what sets it apart. It is very, very different from the AIA convention. Yeah. I guess I should say that you can come to MDC and gather 17 continuing education credits if you so choose. And there are people who will be coming for that in addition to overdosing or not overdosing on design, but getting a lot of design dialogue under their belts. So, and it continues into the evening, so just lots of There will be booze.
Yeah, and so like you kind of start the day off with breakfast, or maybe you're going to go to some classes, like you said, and get some CE credits, and then the talks start, and you go into Merrill Hall, which is this kind of barn-like structure with a ton of chairs. I think it seats like 700 plus people, and there's a mezzanine floor, and people start going through what their presentations are, and typically, and I mean, it is atypical, if these things are not, you just get lost in these presentations. They're usually amazing. They're so good. And I think that the reason people liken this to a retreat is because you come away from it energized. It's not like spending your time at a convention and you're walking and walking and walking the floors, and you're trying to cram down a sandwich in between, some session that you've got to go to. It really is laid back. All the meals are served on site, and so you could sit at the same table as the speakers and you can talk to them.
Absolutely.
And you get to go and get totally immersed in their talks, and then you can't wait for the next one. And it does go all the way into the evening, and people are sitting out in chairs on the decks, and you're enjoying the beautiful evenings that the area has to offer, and that you just keep talking, and then pretty soon it's 2 a.m. And I think that is one of the things where it's like I said, you come away energized, and that to me is really the difference of MDC and why I look forward to it when it comes around. Yeah,
and again, I don't think we can understate the importance or the significance of the setting that contributes to that feeling of being energized. So it's of course it's the inspiration you get from the dialogue and the conversation and the speakers and just the company in general, but it's also the fact that I guess we didn't even mention that the architecture at Asilomar is designed by Julia Morgan, and that it's an oceanfront setting and you can walk down to the ocean, and all of that somehow contributes. It's really kind of a synthetic kind of experience. So the physical setting also has a lot to do with the kind of magic of this event, I think.
Yeah, and because of the size of it, it's not small, but it's definitely not huge. To me, it feels like if you go once and then you go a second time, you're going to definitely see people that you know, and it becomes kind of a homecoming event. But then it's very approachable for first-timers. And so if we have listeners who've never been before who are thinking about going, it's very easy to get into the conference. It's not like I don't know a good way to say it, I guess, but it's not an exclusive club feeling event. It's very open arms, like welcoming, come in and just like let down your guard and be at home for the weekend.
Right.
So I think that's something that people could really look forward to. And to me, that I drive up because I'm in Southern California, and Neil, he's going to drive down, and hopefully Cormac can fly all the way over from the East Coast. And I know that it's mostly a California-centric event, but if there's any way, I mean, as far as I know, there should be plenty of registration slots still open to go to the conference. If you can swing it, you should go.
Absolutely. Everybody should go. And actually, I'll say that I'm amazed by how many friends and colleagues, people I know, have just been emailing me and say, "Oh, I'm planning to come, and so it's going to be great. It's going to be...
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things is if you go to the MDC website, which we can have a link to in our show notes so that people can learn more about the show, it lists every single person who's registered, right? So you can see if people that you know are going to show up, and so you can stalk whoever you want to stalk on there as well. But yeah, so I mean, if you're looking to see if your old boss is going to be there, you should look and see. But but I think that's kind of, it shows how kind of just open it is. Like, it's really transparent. Here's what's going on. Here's who's going to be there. Who the speakers are. Everyone's there for a good time. So I like that part of it. And I think that the California Council of the AIA is doing a great job finding a really great, attractive speakers to get us all to want to keep going back. But ultimately, and this is in a way that it's very similar to the AIA convention, is that people go to be with friends and to do the networking. And I think that those relationships that people have established, and now with this global community that we have with the internet and Twitter and all the social media, it really makes it a great place to put a face to a name or a Twitter handle or whatever, so that you actually can meet those people in person and talk about the thing that we all got into this field to do, which is architecture and design. I mean, it's one of the only conferences that really focuses in on that.
Absolutely. I should mention that one of the headliner speakers is usually a non-architect. This time, Los Angeles artist Pei White. And that's also a great thing because it sort of does bring the whole interdisciplinarity of design into focus a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another great aspect of Monterey Design. And it doesn't try to overdo it. It just, it's just the one speaker who's out there. And I think, that's also really interesting because, I personally am really inspired by people who are doing other things, not architecture. And more, I find that coming into the work and influencing it.
Yep, absolutely.
Hold that thought while we talk about our first sponsor for this show, and that is ArcCAD. Would you like someone to draw CAD details for you, create BIM objects for you, write specifications for you? Would you like this someone to do it all for free? I know I would. ArcCAD has already done this for you. So search the ArcCAD libraries for these products and more, free of charge, with no registration required to download content. ArcCAD has created a website devoted to you, the business professional, to find building product information fast and hassle-free. Check out ArcCAD today at arcat.com. That's arcat.com. And thanks again to ArcCAD for sponsoring Archispeak.
I got a little ArcCAD story.
What you
got? So working on this math and science project, and I was going out searching for skylights. So, of course, I went to arcat.com, took my own advice, and did a search there. And which is something I brought up on a previous episode, is like skip Google and go straight to ArcCAD and see what you can find. One of the things I like using ArcCAD for is because I'm a bad architect. I don't know the whole CSI division format for every little thing.
Yeah,
I like ArcCAD for that because they tell me exactly what division skylights go into. So very cool. And they led me right to a local manufacturer for skylights, which is awesome for all kinds of reasons, lead points, all kinds of stuff like that. Yep. So, it was cool. It's fast, it's easy. I get straight to the Revit family that I needed to place into my model, and I got the CSI division number for the product. And that way I could file the cut sheet away appropriately so that when it comes time to write the specs, we've got it. It's just, it doesn't get any easier than that. So that's my little ArcCAD story for this week. And so everybody get out there next time you're looking for something on your project, and just search for it at arcat.com, and you'll find everything and more that you need there. And it's all in one place. Specs, BIM objects, all kinds of cool stuff. So check it out.
Quick question, though.
Yeah.
Since now you're a good architect because you know what division it is, what division is it?
Putting them on the spot.
It's 08 openings. 62,
yeah, there you go.
6200, I believe.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, I can actually remember that one. Ask me next week, and maybe I'll be on to another category.
I did want to say that Stephen Ehrlich also, we're going to honor him a little bit at the conference. He won the AIA National Firm of the Year award, and so he's actually bringing his entire office to MDC this year, and we're going to have a little celebration for him as well. So, yeah. So I think that's great. Yeah, no, it'll be really fun, and it's funny because I'm actually. I have to confess, I'm online right now as we speak, and I'm looking at this list of people and thinking, I want to talk to this person and that person.
And there's some other stuff on the grounds too. Like I said, there's they have a whole dining facility, and they've got a bunch of great California wines, and it really is kind of just a really social focused conference. There's lots of little nodes for gathering and hanging out, and playing games and whatever anybody wants to do. If you want to go off the grounds and go have dinner with all your friends, you go off and do that. I mean, we do that every year. But if you want to stay on the grounds, there's definitely something to do. And there's a great bookstore. There's usually projects on display in kind of an outdoor plaza area. And then it's seriously just a few hundred yards away from the water, and it's the most gorgeous setting. So
yes.
the grounds is, we can't speak highly enough of the grounds, but it's wonderful.
Yes, and there will be kids there as well. People bring their kids.
Yeah, they bring their families and kids,
yes.
and everybody's running around. And because the grounds, it's an entire conference center with all of the rooms and stuff. I mean, you can tag people onto your conference admission, and they can hang out there for the weekend, and they don't have to have anything to do with the architecture if they don't want to, but but they also can. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So are all three of you going to be there?
Well, at least two of us are. Cormac
Okay.
is trying to find Go ahead.
We're trying.
You need an excuse to come to the coast.
He doesn't need an excuse.
I don't need an excuse. I mean, what's interesting is this is probably exactly what I need. Is that kind of reinvigoration of inspiration.
Yeah.
It's I just recently changed jobs to a job that is a really, really good design firm in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And it was something that, after a few years of where I was at, that seemed somewhat convenient because it was close to my house and didn't want to get into the whole DC traffic thing and excuse after excuse after excuse. I joined this firm, and in the first week I kind of felt almost starstruck because I'm sitting there listening to people and I'm just like, okay, this is how a design firm is supposed to act. This is how a design firm is, they function, because, they're all sitting around talking in full, true collaboration, and really kind of everybody's feeding off of everybody else. And
right.
Then, starting to get the links and kind of, doing a little bit of reading and research on, Monterey Design Conference, I was just like, wow, this is, gotta go, if we're sure going to try to, but, it's just, but in the video and reading like Robert Ivy's write-up and stuff like that, it's just this whole kind of, it's kind of almost reintroducing people to why they got into the profession, because, we all know there's times when it kind of sucks. But it's also...
There's many times when it kind of sucks, yes.
But then there's those times where, you're just like, no matter what, this is the reason, this one little... Even if it's just, for me, last summer, I was walking through a building, and it was a historic renovation addition of an elementary school. And one of the teachers started crying because she was just like, it's amazing. Oh. I was like, okay, that's why I do what I do. She didn't have to put anything into words. She just started crying because she was happy.
Yeah, well, that's a reward. Yeah, what is inspiring about architecture, and you have to go back and you have to really think about that, because the day-to-day profession, I mean, it really is one of the hardest things to do. Yep. Just on a daily basis, and you have to find reasons to continue to do it a lot of the time. Which is really sad. But it did make me think about things in a certain way, and your story about the person who was crying because she was just so moved by the space or inspired by it. I mean, that is what we do it for in the end. That's what I still do it for, is just those moments. But it is hard.
I mean, I remember
we should do another conversation about that.
Well, I mean, in a way, the past couple of episodes, these two guys have been kind of trying to strangle out of me, why I'm leaving the place that I am, even though we've had long, frank conversations about it. But they were trying to get me on record. But, I mean, it all kind of comes down to, I've been involved with a lot of mentoring of all the young kids when they graduate in this firm, and kind of trying to, even though we're throwing them into the toilet room details and everything else and stuff, you're trying to find whatever inspiration that you can about the profession, and how to immerse them in the profession so that they'll learn to love it the way I do and will stay and become the next generation of really good design professionals and architects. And and I kind of did that for everybody else, but I forgot to do it for myself. And and so the past few episodes, they've been kind of we've been talking about this transition of what is the right firm, and when is it the right time to leave, and we were talking about like my first day the new job and everything else, and it was and ultimately at the end of the day, it's just kind of what is inspiring to you, what kind of keeps you going, what kind of keeps you breathing in the thing. But I remember some of these interns, they used to say, I didn't realize how hard architecture really was, and how how much management, or how much this or how much that, and it goes back to and I'll say this to the educator in you, that there is that sometimes, well, I might as well just go ahead and say it. I always pull out my soapbox and talk about the disconnect between some of the realities of the profession and school, and how we're focused. We kind of zero focus in on teaching about design and the everything kind of surrounded about design and stuff, but a lot of times we forget about, explaining about, and you're going to be writing specifications, and you're going to be doing this, and you're going to be doing that. And a lot of times that comes to a huge shock to people. Yeah. And, it's kind of interesting that, but they don't realize that in a way, that's all design too.
It is. It really is. I mean, I actually like the kind of multitasking aspect of architecture, even though it's like torture sometimes. There's something about really having to bring it all together. I mean, that whole synthesis aspect of it, which is also super rewarding. I mean, sometimes you wish it didn't have to be that way, that you could just concentrate on design and, be done with it. But, I mean, I think, hey, man, I think we're a pretty special breed of people. But I was talking to my students just the other day. We just started school, and I'm teaching the fifth years, and they're going to graduate. And I was like, gosh, you guys have no idea what you're in for.
Yeah, seriously.
But don't lose, that curiosity and everything. Because, the other thing is, it's such a different generation now. I mean, I don't know how old you guys are, but, I'm getting up there. And I just feel like,
Neil's the oldest.
It is so different. Like the expectations of graduates, and it's like they're much more sophisticated in a way. We were all naive and wide-eyed, and we didn't expect that much in terms of compensation of any kind. It was really just about, oh my gosh, I'm going to try to get out there and, do and work my butt off and try to do this thing that I love. But this generation, whether it's just because of the amount of information that's out there for them to consume, they come out of school with these expectations that are rooted in being part of the workforce and everything. And I don't know, it's a little bit disturbing to me.
Let me ask you this, because this is just one that I've experienced, and sorry to go off this, guys, but
that's right.
So because I've had, in the position that I had was almost every single graduate worked under me. I was their project manager, and they came in, and I used to try to get them out into the field and really try to immerse them in the experience of what the line on the paper meant in reality. Right. And, because, I came from, I graduated high school, I went into the Army, and then I went to, into architecture school. And so I come from a background of experience is your reward, and that that you basically you go out there, you bust your ass, you show us what you can do, and then you move up, kind of thing. It's you earn it. And there is an interesting, and I'm curious about your perspective, because there's this almost feeling that I've got my degree, isn't that enough, kind of thing. And it's not that they're not willing to put in the effort, but I think in a way sometimes I get the impression that they're always expecting change and wanting more and wanting more and wanting more, that they're not stopping to at least kind of appreciate the education of the experience,
right,
and looking for the next one, and then looking for the next one, and kind of bypassing some very integral things, which this whole 13 schools going to try the
I think it was 11.
The licensure and
upon graduation.
I worry about that because there's that, to me, getting licensed is a huge responsibility, and having the experience to go behind the licensure is huge to me. I never got promoted to sergeant.
Why you haven't gotten your license? You're still trying to work on your experience, Cormac.
But
I disagree with you. I disagree with you on that, because for some of us who graduated a long time ago, I'm close to you, Alice. Not quite. You got me by a couple of years, I think. But I got my license less than 3 years after I graduated. Did I have a wealth of experience yet? No. But
you still don't.
And I still don't. Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. But anyway, I just don't think you have to have this wealth of experience to get a license and to call yourself an architect. In Europe, everybody who graduates architecture school is an architect. It's done. There is no licensure sort of process that they go through over there. I could be overstating that, but or misstating that. But I think integrating it into school is maybe not a bad thing, because as we've seen, as the exam has changed. When I took it, it was once a year. And it was almost like a little class reunion. Everybody got to go, and you got to see. It was sort of like MDC, except we were all taking the exam. People that you hadn't seen from
it was not as
school. Fun. It was not as fun. No, definitely not. But my point is that you only had one opportunity to take this exam, and so you did it. You made sure that in that second week in June every year, you took your exams. And now with everything going to, hey, take it whenever you want, life gets in the way. And I think that's caused a huge problem for people in the profession that want to get licensed, because they have to make a huge commitment to make sure it happens. And for those of us that only had it once a year, okay, well, I either take it this year or I wait another year. So you made an effort to do that. Now it's like, oh, I can take it anytime I want, and then you just never do. And I know a lot of people that this has happened to. The only thing that forces them to take any one exam is, my, whatever it's called, my rotating clock or whatever on being grandfathered in is going up, so I better take one exam. And then, I got to get back to it. And then nobody ever does. And I don't think that's healthy for the profession.
Yeah, I see both sides of that. All right, it's time for our next sponsor, and that is a brand new sponsor to the Archispeak podcast, and we welcome Hager Companies. Since 1849, Hager Companies has been focused on innovative products, resulting in the only U.S.-based provider offering a full line of door hardware. Along with our quality products and outstanding customer service, Hager provides complimentary architectural hardware consulting services and numerous AIA and CES registered continuing education courses, which I need to check out for sure before the end of the year. Deadline is looming. We will be exhibiting at the Construct Show in our hometown of St. Louis on October 1st and 2nd, booth number 307, and also at the Texas Society of Architects show in Dallas which is November 5th and 6th at booth 735. Stop by, say hello, and mention this podcast and episode number, and this is pretty cool, to enter to win a GoPro Hero. So the only way to enter and win a GoPro Hero is mention this podcast, the Archispeak podcast, and this episode number, episode 70, to enter to win a GoPro Hero. So that is an awesome thing to get in on. So either if you're going to the Construct Show in St. Louis, or if you're going to the Texas Society of Architects show in Dallas, check out the show notes for specific details. You can see the links to those shows. Stop by, mention us, and enter to win a GoPro from Hager Companies. So thanks to Hager Companies for sponsoring the Archispeak podcast.
I don't know what the right answer is. I will say, I do think that in school, I don't think bringing in licensure as kind of an active part of the curriculum is really a good idea, simply because, there's just too much that the students have to get through.
That's my point, too. There's no time. There's no time,
right. And then you're just detracting from design. And in the end, you can argue that, they can learn how to design on the job. And sure, that's true to a certain. Yeah, I mean, it's true to a certain extent for certain types of things.
No, the job is where you go to forget how to do that.
Thinking, it's not happen. Yeah. So
in most firms, that is where you go to forget all that stuff you learned in school. And to me, that is why the MDC is so awesome.
Yeah.
It's because
it's not where you go.
It's where it reminds you of what you fell in love with.
Yeah, it's not where you go to forget what you've learned. They don't have time to let you do some of the stuff that you got into the profession for, because they're too busy needing you to do the toilet room plans and details and things like that, and
or the renderings or the Revit
or the renderings whatever. Or hey, the Revit?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's too many other things, and unfortunately that's what kind of disillusions a lot of people from staying and remaining in the profession, because they're everything that they got into doing, the whole reason they got into the profession and when it went through the school was because of their love of design, which kind of let's go full circle back around to this, to the MDC, where, what's interesting about these is, and, kind of this importance of this reinvigoration, that, kind of like reconnecting with, the essence of why we do this. I think more architects need things like, the MDC. I think there needs to be more than just, you damned West Coasters taking over, co-opting design, thinking it's all about you. No,
we're just doing something about it. That's all.
No, I'm glad you guys are, because, but what, I think there are, unfortunately, there are things similar in attempt out here, except for the problem is what they end up doing is they end up making it more of a mini AIA conference and not something that's more solely 100% about design. And, that's one of the reasons why I want to go.
This is basically architecture plus vacation, right? Which is kind of cool.
No, it's an archi vacation.
Yeah.
Architation or whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, there we go. But I mean, I mean, the whole point, behind the conference, and what I found amazing about, just all of the things that you could read online about it, and the, and I know that the video is promotional, but I mean, it's still, you can see the look on their faces and the, tone in their voice that they really are excited about, the experience that they walk away with, that it is something, and that's, it's almost like it's a Rocky movie for architecture, Yeah. And that's kind of what we need, because we sometimes, and, we just kind of, displayed it a little bit, that we get a little cynical sometimes in the profession, and ways to kind of like help kind of squeeze a little bit of that cynicism out is to kind of always reconnect with the emotional aspects of what we do.
One of the cool things that's happening this year, it sounds like, is that there are firms who have bought several, blocks of passes for their employees. So it sounds like the offices are going to use it kind of as a retreat.
Starting with the biggest one, which is early, like 40 people.
Yeah.
40 registrations.
That's awesome.
But looking through that list again as we were talking, I did notice, lots of people from the same firm. So I think you're right. Because my guess is that offices are paying for them, which is great. And that's also just a sign that the economy is picking up, right?
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
I know one of the things that the firm that I work at did was they bought, I think, 6 different passes for people, full-blown, fully covered, and then they held a little design competition. And then they got people together, and they judged the competition, and the winners get to go to the MDC. And it was cool because...
That's great!
Yeah, and the winners are people who've never been. And so it was really a successful, I think. Hopefully it turns out to... I can't imagine it won't. It's going to be a great, eye-opening, and also, really inclusive thing for all these people who never would have done it on their own, and they get to go, and it's going to be... I think it's going to be a really great experience for them, and I'm really just proud of my firm for doing that, because that was going out on a limb, and because not that many people from the firm were going to go before that, and now there's 6 more people, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. So I hope to see all 3 of you there. It'll be nice to meet you.
Definitely. Well, we're going to make that happen. All right, Cormac. It's not cheap to get a flight out and flight back, unfortunately.
It is.
So, yeah, it's true.
He's got to be back at work on Monday, so that's the hard part. All right, so what we're thinking we're going to do in the future is go to the MDC, obviously, and then maybe we'll do a recap and have you back on the show and talk about how it went, and kind of, like I said, when we go away from this totally energized, it's something that I know myself and my coworkers don't stop talking about for quite a while. So it would be fun to get back together after the show and chat a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I will look forward to that.
Great. All right. So if we don't have anything else, I think we'll say goodbye to you for now until next time. And I think that was a great summary. So thanks, Alice. We really appreciate it.
After I actually get to go to this one, I will have a lot to say.
Great.
So, okay.
Excellent.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks. Good night.
Great talking to you.
Yep. Bye.
If you have questions or comments, visit our website at archispeakpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our individual Twitter accounts and the Archispeak Podcast Facebook page, so you too can join in on the conversation. And if you have an inspiring tale to share, or you're going to the MDC conference yourself, call Archispeak and let us know. Leave us a message at 415-484-8496, and we'll be sure to share it on the show. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, ArcCat. Visit them at arcat.com. That's ARCAT.com. And welcome to our new sponsor, and that is Hager Companies. And you can find them at hagerco.com. Again, thank you to both of them for sponsoring Archispeak. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us a review on iTunes. We really appreciate those, and it helps get the word out about the show. So thanks, everyone, and stay subscribed, and thanks for listening.
Good night.
Good night.
On the outline, my body a Tiffany blue. When I said I drove right in everybody.